Gandalf has found out that the One Ring, what they're calling the One Ring, has, if it is that, you can put it in the fire. Oh, I wouldn't. You could put it in the fire, and then it will show some markings around the outside. So that's what they're looking for. So Gandalf takes the ring and he throws it into the fire. No apparent change came over the ring. After a while, Gandalf got up, closed the shutters outside the window, and drew the curtains. The room became dark and silent through the clack of Sam's shears. Now nearer to the windows could still be heard faintly from the garden. For a moment the wizard stood looking at the fire, and then he stooped and removed the ring to the hearth with the tongs, and at once picked it up. Frodo gasped. "It's quite cool," said Gandalf. "Take it." Frodo received it in on his shrinking palm. He seemed to have become thicker and heavier than ever. "Hold it up," said Gandalf, "and look closely." As Frodo did so, he now saw fine lines, finer than the finest pen strokes running along the ring. Outside and inside lines of fire that seemed to form the letters of a flowing script. "I cannot read the fiery letters," said Frodo in a quavering voice. "No," said Gandalf, "but I can. The letters are of Elvish and an ancient mode, but the language is that of Mordor, which I will not utter here. But this is the common tongue, is what it said close enough. One ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them. It is only 2 lines of a long verse known in elven lore. 3 rings for elven kings under the sky." So 3 rings for who? Elves. 7 for the dwarf lords in their halls of stone. 9 for mortal men doomed to die. 1 for the Dark Lord on his dark throne in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. 1 ring to rule them all, 1 ring to find them, 1 ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them, in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. Now, you are going to write on your...
One ring that binds them?
So you're going to write in your little space, or wherever you have space, guys. Okay, 3 for the elves, right? How many did they give to the dwarves?
9.
7. So write 7 for dwarves.
On the important one?
Mm-hmm. 3 for elves.
For the dwarves and
Wait,
7 for dwarves.
7.
I didn't know that was much rings. I thought there was just one invisible ring.
Hold on, we're getting there.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you want to get rid of the ring?
Because it makes you...
Such great power.
Hold on, we'll get to
Later
that.
on.
Okay, so 9 and 9 were given to men.
Oh, 9 given to
9 given to men.
Weird.
So
And
7
1
for
for the
dwarves,
dwarves.
3 for elves, 9 for men.
9.
3 for elves, 7 for dwarves, 9 for men. So how many rings does that make? So far. 7 plus 3 is 10. 10 plus 9 for men, that's 19. 19, and
Wait,
then
is that how
1.
many rings there are?
Mm-hmm. Yes, but what does the 1 ring do? The 1 rules them all.
What about the Dark Lord?
Oh, the
Yes,
one
so the ring they have now is the one that controls all the others. If you're a guy that wants to be in power, why would you give rings that you can control to other people?
So you can control them?
So you can control everybody.
Like if they just
Wait.
take the ring off and like, you can't control me.
They could, but what do those rings do to people?
Control.
Kill
Like,
them.
Makes them addicted, right? So if you have a ring that makes you addictive and you never want to take it off, and you can control it, then you're going to be the one that wants the ring, right?
but in the movie, you never see the rings.
You never stop.
No, you don't. Well,
Definitely.
at the very front you do. And if you really pay attention to Galadriel, she has one. Go watch the movie again, you'll see it. We'll watch it, I'll point out.
the movie? Wait, when are we gonna watch?
I can't even count anymore. He paused and then slowly in a deep voice said, "This is the master ring, the one ring, Connor, to rule them all. This is the one ring that he lost many ages ago to the great weakening of his power." Frodo sat silent and motionless. "This ring," he stammered. "How on earth did it come to me?" "Ah," said Gandalf, "that's a very long story. The beginnings lie back in the Black Years. But last night I told you of Sauron the Great, the Dark Lord. The rumors that you have heard are true. He has indeed arisen and left his hold in Mirkwood, and returned to his ancient fastness in the dark tower of Mordor. I wish it need not happen to me in my time," said Frodo. "So do I," said Gandalf, "and so do all that live to see such times. But that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given. The enemy still lacks one thing to give him strength and knowledge to beat down all resistance, and break his last defenses, and cover the lands in a second darkness. He lacks the one ring. The 3, fairest of all, the elf lords hid from him, and his hand never touched them or sullied them. 7, the dwarf kings possess, but 3 he has recovered, and the others the dragons have consumed. So out of the 7 dwarf rings, how many does he have?
3.
He has 3. What do dragons like?
Gold.
Dragons like gold and shiny things, right? So basically dragons took all the rest. The 9 he gave to the mortal men, proud and great, and also and so ensnared them. Long ago they fell under the dominion of the one, and they became ring race, shadows under his great shadow, his most terrible servants. Long ago, it is many a year that 9 walked abroad, yet who knows? At the shadow grow one more, they too may walk again. So he gave those the 9 rings to the men, right? Old kings, and then they couldn't handle the dark power. Now they're all basically like zombie people, right?
Are those guys
Like
in black
Cole.
robes?
Yep. Guys on the black horses.
Wait, if the dragons consume them,
Wait a minute.
you have to control the dragon.
I don't think so. I think it kind of has to be on his finger. I think that's kind of how that
Yeah,
works.
make it really big and put on the dragon finger.
Yeah, I know, right? I don't think dragons are putting on rings, but you could be wrong. Why? Why wasn't it destroyed? Cried Frodo. And how did the enemy ever come to lose it if he was so strong and it was so precious to him? He clutched the ring in his hand as if he already saw dark fingers stretching out to seize it. It was taken from him, said Gandalf. The strength of the elves to resist him was greater long ago, and not all men were estranged from them. The men of the Western came to their aid. That is a chapter of ancient history which it might be good to recall, for there was sorrow then too in gathering dark, but great valor and great deeds that were not wholly vain. One day, perhaps I will tell you the whole tale, or you shall hear it told by the one who knows best. But for the moment, since most of all you need to know how this thing came to you, that is all I will say. It was Gil-galad, an elven king, and Elendil of Westerness, who overthrew Sauron, though they themselves perished in the deed. And Isildur, Elendil's son, cut the ring from Sauron's hand and took it for his own. Then Sauron was vanquished, and the spirit fled and was hidden for long years till his shadow took shape again in Mirkwood. So what did they say? How did they say Sauron lost it?
Cut off his finger.
They cut off his hand. Or in the book, he cut off his hand. Yeah, they cut it off of him, right? And then Isildur took it. Because what does the ring make you want to do?
Addiction.
Keep it. But the ring was lost. It fell into the great river Anduin and vanished. For Isildur was marching north along the east banks of the river, and near the Gladden fields he was waylaid by the orcs of the mountains, and almost all of his folk were slain. He leaped into the water, but the ring slipped from his fingers as he swam, and the orcs saw him and killed him with arrows. And there in the dark pools amid the Gladden fields, he said, the ring passed out of knowledge and legend, and even so much of history known to only a few, and the council of wise would discover no more. But at last I can carry on the story, I think. Long after, but still very long ago, there lived by the banks of the great river on the edge of the wilder land a clever-handed and quiet-footed little people. I guess they were kind of like hobbits. So these people by the river are kind of like what? Hobbits. That means are they peaceful or are they warring? They're very peaceful. They just kind of like to run around and enjoy life. So are they mean-spirited or are they really kind?
Really kind.
They're very kind. There was among them a family of high repute, for it was large and wealthier than most, and it was ruled by a grandmother of the folk, stern and wise in old lore, such as they had had. The most inquisitive and curious-minded the family was called Schmeagol. He was interested in roots and beginnings. He dived into the deep pools. He burrowed under trees and growing plants. He tunneled into green mounds, and he would cease to look up at the hilltops or the leaves on trees. The flowers opening in the air, his head and his eyes were downward. He had a friend called Deagle, of a similar sort, sharper-eyed but not so quick or strong. On a time they took a boat and went down to the Gladden fields, where there were great beds of iris and flowering reeds. There Smeagol got out and went nosing around the banks, but Deagle sat in the boat and fished. Suddenly a great fish took his hook, and before he knew where he was dragged out and down into the water to the bottom. Then he let go of his line, for he thought he saw something shining on the riverbed, and holding his breath he grabbed it. Then up he came spluttering with weeds in his hair and a handful of mud, and he swam to the bank. And behold, when he washed the mud away, there in his hand lay a beautiful gold ring, and it shone and glittered in the sun, so that his heart was glad. But Smeagol had been watching him from behind a tree, and as Deagle gloated over the ring, Smeagol came softly up behind. "Give us that, Deagle, my love," said Smeagol over his friend's shoulder. "Why?" said Deagle. "Because it's my birthday, my love, and I wants it," said Smeagol. "I don't care," said Deagle. "I have given you a present already, more than I could afford. I found this, and I'm going to keep it." "Oh, are you indeed, my love?" said Smeagol, and he caught Deagle by the throat and strangled him because the gold looked so bright and beautiful. Then he put the ring on his finger. So what does the ring do to people?
Makes people murder each other.
It makes people murder each other, right? If these are kind and gentle people, do they generally run around murdering people?
No.
Yes. Probably not. No one ever found out what became of Deagle. He was murdered far from home and his body was cunningly hidden. But Smeagol returned alone, and he found that none of his family could see him when he was wearing the ring. He was very pleased with this discovery, and he concealed it, and he used it to find out secrets, and he put his knowledge to crooked and malicious uses. He became sharp-eyed and keen-eared for all that was hurtful. The ring had given him power according to his stature. It is not to be wondered at that he became very unpopular and was shunned when visible by all of his relations. They kicked at him and he bit at their feet. He took to thieving and going about muttering to himself and gurgling in his throat. So they called him Gollum and cursed him and told him to go far away. So when they call him Gollum, it's because he's going all the time. He wandered in loneliness, weeping a little for the hardness of the world, and he journeyed up the river until he came to a stream that flowed down in the mountains. Then at last he looked up and shook his fist at the sun, but as he lowered his eyes, he saw far above the mountain tops of the misty mountains a stream out where the stream came. And he thought suddenly it would be cool and shady under those mountains. The sun could not watch me there. The roots of those mountains must be roots indeed. There must be great secrets buried there which I have not discovered since the beginning. So he journeyed high up into the mountains. Gollum, cried Frodo. Do you mean that this is the very Gollum that Bilbo met? How loathsome. I think it's a sad story, said the wizard, and it might have happened to others, even to some hobbits that I have known. I can't believe that Gollum was connected with hobbits, however distantly, he said. What an abominable notion. It is all true the same. They understood one another remarkably well, very much better than a hobbit would understand, say, a dwarf or an orc or an elf. Think of the riddles they both knew, for one thing. Yes, said Frodo, they're all the folks besides hobbit ass riddles, and of much of the same sort, and hobbits don't cheat. Gollum meant to cheat all the time. He was just trying to put poor Bilbo off his guard, and I dare say it amused his wickedness to start a game which might end in providing him with an easy victim. Only too true, I fear. But that, of course, would only make the evil part of him angrier at the end unless it would be cruel, Gandalf sighed. There is little hope for him now, yet no hope. No, not though he possessed the ring for so long, almost as far back as I could remember, for it was a long time since he had worn it much. In the black darkness it was seldom needed. Certainly he had never faded. He is thin and tough, but the thing was eating up his mind, of course, and the torment had become almost unbearable. So basically what happened to this river guy, he used to look like a hobbit, right? And then the ring kind of started messing with his brain, and then he quit going out in the sunshine and started living in a cave, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
He started living in a cave. So now he doesn't talk to anybody except for himself.
Is that Precious?
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's the guy that says my precious all the time.
How does he say
Yeah,
it?
that skinny little weird looking dude that's very creepy.
How does he say it? Like,
It's like he's got something
Yeah,
in the back of his
I can't do
throat that
it.
says
My son can. What do you mean, said Frodo? Surely the ring was his most precious and the only thing he cared for, but if he hated it, why didn't he get rid of it or go away and leave it? You all ought to begin to understand, Frodo, after all you've heard. He hated it and loved it, as he hated and loved himself. He could not get rid of it. A ring of power looks after itself, Frodo. It may slip off treacherously, but its keeper never abandons it. At most, he plays with the idea of handing it off to someone else, and then at an early stage, when it first begins to get its grip. He needed all my help, too. Bill was the only one to ever be able to get rid of it. And even so, he would never have just forsaken it or cast it aside. It was not Gollum, Frodo, but the ring that decided to leave him. The ring left him. Why, just in time to meet Bilbo, said Frodo. Wouldn't an orc have been better? It's no laughing matter, said Gandalf, not for you. It was the strangest event in the whole history of the ring so far. Bilbo's arrival just at that time and putting his hand on it, blindly in the dark. There was more than one power at work, wrote Frodo. The ring was trying to get back to its master. It had slipped from Isildur's hand and betrayed him. Then when a chance came to it, caught poor Deagle, and he was murdered. And after that, Gollum. And it devoured him. It could make no further use of him. He was too small and mean, and as long as it stayed with him, he would never leave his deep pool again. So now, when his master was awake once more and sending out his darkest thoughts from Mirkwood, it abandoned Gollum, only to be picked up by the most unlikely person imaginable, Bilbo from the Shire. Behind that, there was something else at work, beyond any of the design of the ring maker. I can put it no plainer than saying that Bilbo was meant to find the ring, and not by its maker, in which case you were also meant to have it. And that may be an encouraging thought. It is not, said Frodo, though I'm not sure that I understand you, but how have you learned all this about the ring and about Gollum? Do you really know it all, or are you just guessing? I knew much, and I have learned much, he answered, but I'm not going to give account of all my doings to you. The history of Elendil and Isildur and the One Ring is known to all the wise. Your ring is shown to be that one ring by the fire writing alone, apart from the other evidence. And what did you discover? Well, just now in this room, but I expected to find it. I have come back from the dark journey in a long search to make that final test. You have seen Gollum, exclaimed Frodo in amazement. Yes, the obvious thing to do, of course, if one could. I tried long ago, but I have managed it at last. Then what happened after Bilbo escaped him? Do you know that? Not so clearly. What I have told you is that Gollum was willing to tell, though not, of course, in the way I've reported. Gollum is a liar, and you have to sift his words. For instance, he called the ring his birthday present, and stuck to that. He said it came from his grandmother, who had lots of beautiful things of that kind. A ridiculous story. I have no doubt that Smeagol's grandmother was a matriarch, a great person in her way, but to talk of her possessing many elven rings was absurd. And as for giving them away, it was a lie, but a lie with a grain of truth. The murder of Deagle haunted Gollum, and he made up a defense, repeating to his precious over and over again as he gnawed bones in the dark until he almost believed it. It was his birthday. Deagle ought to have given the ring to him. It obviously turned up just to be as his present. It was his birthday present, and so on and so on. I endured him long enough as I could, but the truth was desperately important, and in the end I had to be harsh. I put the fear of fire on him and wrung the true story out of him bit by bit. Together with much sniveling and snarling, he thought he was misunderstood and ill-used. But then he had the last story he told me as far as the end of the riddle game and Bilbo's escape. He would not say more except in the dark hints. Some other fear was on him greater than mine. He muttered he was going to get his own back. People would see if he would stand being kicked and driven into a hole and robbed. Gollum had good friends now. Good friends and very strong. They would help him. Baggins would pay for it. That was his chief thought. He hated Bilbo and cursed his name. What is more, he knew where he came from. So, if the wrong people figured out where the ring is, where would they come looking?
For the ring?
Precious.
Well, okay, so Gandalf is basically telling him. He told him the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Gets cut off. Isildur cuts it off of Sauron, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And then he takes it.
Uh-huh.
And then falls in the river and orcs shoot him, and then he loses the ring, right? And then Smeagol gets it, and then he drops it. The ring is basically trying to, it's kind of like it's got a mind of its own. It's trying to get back to Sauron so he can control everything, right? So obviously a dude hanging out in the cave is probably not going to help it get back, right? Okay, so now he wants Bilbo to have it. But so if they start asking questions, if bad people, like the dark people, still want the ring back and they know Bilbo or they know Gollum had it, what's he going to tell them about who has it now?
Nothing.
If he is tortured enough and he has these friends and he wants it back, does he know Bilbo's name?
Yeah.
Yep. Does he know where he came from?
Yeah.
Yep. So if bad people are going to go, where are they going to go looking for Bilbo?
To the place where he lives.
To the Shire where he came from, right?
Yep.
Yep. They're going to the Shire. But how did he find that out? Asked Frodo. Well, as for the name, Bilbo very foolishly told Gollum himself, and after that it would not be difficult to discover his country once Gollum came out. Oh, yes, he came out. His longing for the ring proved stronger than his fear of orcs or even the daylight. After a year or two, he left the mountains. You see, through all this is bound by desire. The ring is no longer devouring him. He began to revive a little. He felt terribly old, yet less timid, and he was mortally hungry. Light of the sun and moon he still feared and hated, and he always will. But he was cunning. He found he could hide from daylight and moonshine and make his way swiftly and softly by the dead of night. Is that where you found him? I saw him there, said Gandalf, but before that he had wandered far. He wandered down into Mordor. Let's see. The greatest traveler and huntsman of his age of the world, together we sought for Gollum down the whole length of Wildwood Land without hope and without success. But alas, when I had given up the chase and turned to other parts, Gollum was found. My friend turned out of great perils, bringing the miserable creature with him. We had been doing what he would not say. He only crept and called us cruel, with many a Gollum in his throat, and then he pressed and whined and cringed and rubbed his long hands, licking his fingers as if they pained him. But I am afraid there is no possible doubt he had made a slow, sneaking way, step by step, mile by mile, south to land of Mordor. Yes, to Mordor, said Gandalf. Alas, Mordor draws all wicked things, and the dark power was bending all its will to gather them there. The ring of the enemy would leave its mark too. So what's it saying that it's going to Mordor? Where Mordor, is that a good place or a bad place?
Bad.
It's a bad place. All bad things go there. So, yeah.
Isn't that the big tower?
Yeah, that's, yeah.
The big broken down castle.
In the movie, yes.
With the big eye.
No, that's not the right one.
Yep. So, alas, through the enemy has learned that the one ring has been found. He knows where Isildur fell. He knows where Gollum found his ring. He knows that it is a great ring, for it gave long life. He knows that it is not one of the three, for they have never been lost, and they endure no evil. He knows that it is not one of the 7 or the 9, for they are accounted for. He knows that it is the one, and as he has last heard, I think, of hobbits and the Shire. So the elves still have the ring. What does it say about the elven rings?
They're never lost.
Well, they were never lost, right? But are they bad or good?
Good.
They're still good, right?
They're still elvish.
Yeah, they're still good. I'm sorry, said Frodo, but I'm frightened, and I do not feel pity for Gollum. You have not seen him, Gandalf broke in. No, and I don't want to. I can't understand you. Do you mean to say that you and the elves have let him live on after all those horrible deeds? Now, at any rate, he is as bad as an orc, and just an enemy. Yeah, I know. I'm not sure what that is. All the same, said Frodo, even if Bilbo could not kill Gollum, I wish he had not kept the ring. I wish he'd never found it and that I had not gotten it. Why did you let me keep it? Why didn't you make me throw it away or destroy it? Let you? Make you? Said the wizard. Haven't you been listening to all that I've said? You're not thinking of what you're saying. But as far as throwing it away, that was obviously wrong. These rings have a way of being found. In evil hands, it might have done great evil. Worst of all, it might have fallen into the hands of the enemy. Indeed, it certainly would, for this is the one, and he is exerting all of his power to find it. My dear Frodo, it was dangerous for you, and that has troubled me deeply. As long as you never used it, I do not think the ring would have any lasting effects on you, not for evil, not at any rate for a long time. And you must remember that 9 years ago when I last saw you, I still knew little for certain. But why not destroy it as you say it should have been done long ago? If you had warned me or even sent me a message, I would have done away with it. Would you? How would you do that? Have you ever tried? Well, no, but I suppose one can hammer it or melt it. Try it, said Gandalf. Try it now. Frodo drew the ring out of his pocket and looked at it. Now appeared plain and smooth without a mark or a device that could be seen. The gold looked very fair and pure, and Frodo thought how rich and beautiful was its color, how perfect was its roundness. It was an admirable thing and altogether precious. Gandalf laughed grimly. You see, already you too, Frodo, cannot easily let it go, nor will to damage it, and I could not make you except by force, which would break your mind. But as far as breaking the ring, force is useful. Even if you took it and struck it with a heavy sledgehammer, it would make no dent in it. It cannot be unmade by your hands or mine. Your small fire, of course, would not even melt ordinary gold. This ring has already passed through it unscathed and even unheated, but there is no smith's forge in the Shire that could change it at all. There is only one way, to find the cracks of doom in the depths of Orredon, the fire mountain, and cast the ring in there. If you really wish to destroy it, to put it beyond the grasp of the enemy forever. I do wish to destroy it, cried Frodo, or well, to have it destroyed. I'm not made for perilous quests. I wish I'd never seen the ring. Why did it come for me? Why was I chosen? Such questions cannot be answered, said Gandalf. You may be sure that it was not for any merit the others do not possess, nor for the power or wisdom at any rate. But you have been chosen, and you must therefore use such strength and heart and wits as you have. But I have so little of these things. You are wise and powerful. Will you not take the ring? No, cried Gandalf, springing to his feet. With that power, I should have power too great and terrible. And over me the ring would gain a power still greater and more deadly. Do not tempt me, for I do not wish to become like the Dark Lord himself. Yet the way of the ring to my heart is to be pity. Pity for weakness and the desire of strength to do good. Do not tempt me. I dare not take it. The wish to wield it would be too great for my strength. I shall have so much need of it. Great perils lie before me. So, we talked about this earlier, though, right? If Gandalf has the power of a ring like that, he'll try to use it for good, but what will probably end up happening?
It'll take over his mind.
Murder.
And you'll probably
Kira.
use his-
Yeah. It'll probably turn him evil. Or yeah, he'll take it to
Take
Sauron.
him down to the ground.
And then
I'm just
the
gonna-
whole world.
Are we gonna write anything else?
No, not really. Well, said Gandalf, what are you thinking about? Have you decided what to do? No, answered Frodo, coming back to himself. Or perhaps yes. As far as I understand what you said, I suppose I must keep the ring and guard it, at least for the present, whatever it may do to me. Whatever it may do, it will be slow to evil if you keep it up with that purpose. I hope so, said Frodo, but I hope that you may find some other better keeper soon. But in the meantime, it seems that I am in danger, a danger to all that live near me. Is he wrong? What's going to happen if if the bad people come to the Shire?
Kill him.
They're probably going to kill a lot of the hobbits, right? So what does Bilbo say he's needing to do?
Leave.
He's needing to leave.